It's good to have you on with us, Elana. I did a nice little bit of a background on all of your wonderful work. You've been doing this for a long time. I have been a fan of yours for a long time. Such a pleasure. I've heard you on Clyde Lewis's show a number of times. Never missed an appearance. Always very excited when you came on. And here we are tonight, author of Under an Ionized Sky. And I hear you're working on another geoengineering book right now. Is that correct?
Yes, this is the third and I hope last geoengineering book that I'm going to write. And this one will clinch the deal because this one goes into synthetic biology, because synthetic biology turns out, little did I know 10 years ago, but it turns out that that is really one of the largest aspects to geoengineering, not just the weather, but something even more nefarious.
Wow, I would love to get a preview of that. That's the first time I've ever heard of anything like this.
Yeah, well, that's what we're going to talk about today, because I would say, our anti-geoengineering movement is, 15, 20 years old now, and there are a lot of very smart people who are running sites and putting things up to give people an idea of how big this geoengineering is. I mean, it's so big that it has to do with basically weaponizing the entire planet Earth. And I would say that from my vantage point, that has been achieved.
I see that, and I wanted to ask you something about that. I thought it would be a really great way to kick the door open and allow you to start taking us on into what is such a dense pile of information. And like I said before, I'd love to have you back because I know that it would be a fool's errand to try to get everything that you work into in one sitting here. But if you were writing a progress report for Western civilization, if not the planet at large, as you just said, a planetary effect right now, for the year 2020, how would you summarize our current situation right now?
I would have to say that the certainly in the United States, so let's just talk about the United States, people here have assumed that we are a democratic nation, and yet over my lifetime, which goes back to the Cold War, I have been pretty awake since I was about 16. And I would say that this is the first time that I have been encouraged, ironically, that people are beginning now, only now, to awaken to how this nation has been completely criminalized, and our institutions have pretty much taken over. And if there's anything democratic here, I would have to say maybe the internet movement is pretty democratic in that it's horizontal. It's not a vertical hierarchic system. Okay, so Facebook and all the owners of the means by which we have internet are not exactly our friends. Still, we have had an opportunity beyond belief for 15 years now to converse, meet people across the planet, share ideas. I mean, it's been fantastic. And to me, that is the only democratic movement I've seen in my lifetime.
It's funny you say that because I was thinking the same thing. Despite the fact that, especially right now, it's almost like we're reaching a fever pitch with censorship across the big platforms. Yesterday, I had many personal friends of mine have all of their YouTube channels. We're talking about millions of subscribers,
Right.
tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of views collectively, just wiped off the platform completely. And
Amazing.
You have Twitter and Facebook that are making it hard for anybody to share anything that has been published by the New York Post, which is America's oldest newspaper at this point. It it is odd, but as you were saying there, despite all of that, it is very it's inspiring to me, because that Streisand effect, that's a real thing. Well, when people are shown collectively that you're not allowed to think something, you're not allowed to say something or go somewhere, that kind of teenage rebelliousness bubbles up again, huh?
Well, and I think it's more than teenage rebellion. I think it's that First Amendment that is so rare in the entire world. I'm a great respecter. I used to teach the Constitution when I was a high school teacher many years ago. That the Bill of Rights is unique. There is no other nation that has that. Now, there may be cultures in the world that are much healthier than the American culture, no doubt about that. But they tend to be very demographically unified, ethnically unified, and America is just, it's either it's some sort of I want to call it a cesspool now, but it has been an amazing vat of many peoples coming here for economic justice, for the right to speak, the right to write what they want. We have a great history in our measly 200 or so years. But what I'm seeing now from your question, I have to say that the everything's coming home to roost now, because for many years, and I would go back to the Kennedy assassination, America in general made no effort to discover the perpetrators and to serve justice out to them. For John Kennedy, Martin Luther King, Robert Kennedy, Malcolm X, you name it. It was the coming of age for me in the 60s generation, and boy, did it blast us. It just blasted us, and I think that's when a lot of drug use went up, a lot of suicides. The idea that the illusion we'd been born with, that it was all here and our representatives were representing us and everything was good, the best nation in the world. When we realized, wow, no, there's some faction controlling the idealism of this country. And of course we had the seeming opposition between the idealism and the capitalism that seemed to foster greed and power and sort of a megalomania. All of these things, these great themes have been in my life. I'm very grateful for it, because I'm a witness. I'm a fighter, and for me, the 60s were never over. It was more, and that's what I wrote about in those books, the Sub Rosa America series, which is very important. They're really history books, but in a fictional format, so that I could give a taste, a flavor of what the 60s generation was really about. So I find myself now much older, and deeply, now it's been 10 years I've been in this movement, the geoengineering movement, through my friendship with probably the foremost from the beginning scientist, Clifford Carnicom, who was very much involved in even the 90s in measuring what was coming down from these trails behind jets that he knew were not contrails, because he's a good observer, he's a scientist. He knows that a contrail lasts max 30 seconds and is pretty much water vapor and particulates. But what he saw instead were these long trails, and they would spread out into a strange sort of cirrus cloud cover. And then he began to measure the precipitation that was coming down, whether in northern New Mexico, whether it was snow or dew or whatever it was. And in his HEPA filter, he was pulling out clots of something. So he began all of this investigation into geoengineering, not so much as a series of jets, these solar radiation management, SRM, or the other acronyms that they have for it, but for the detritus coming down from those trails. And that's, of course, what I've gotten so deeply involved in, not from the first book, Chemtrails, HAARP, and the Full Spectrum Dominance of Planet Earth in 2014, was really just sort of trying to get it all sort of straightened out, because at that point it was still considered a conspiracy theory, and of course the CIA was very busy promulgating that idea that it was all tinfoil hats and nonsense. But into the second book, Under an Ionized Sky, From Chemtrails to Space Fence Lockdown, I began to look at the hardware and the electromagnetic element of what was being done to what was coming down from the jets. And certainly, as Clifford Carnicom had shown me, what we're breathing in from those jet trails. And that led me to this book that is now on synthetic biology. And let me read you the title. I'm known for long titles, so forgive me. Geoengineered Transhumanism, How the Environment Has Been Weaponized with Chemicals, Electromagnetics, and Nanoparticles for Synthetic Biology. And that's really the key. I think just to give you a taste of it, we saw it in operation in those first clips that came out of Wuhan. We saw how molecular biology is being converted into digital biology. And this is something that most people are not following, have not been following. A lot of people say, I was no good in science in high school, so, I'm not going to do this. I think that's a big mistake, because this is a technological era, and we are deeply engaged in technology that is threatening to take over our human lives and our humanity as a species. So that's why I'm working so hard for all these years, and why this last book is just like wrestling with a serpent. It's so unwieldy and so too much, and so many things that have to be clarified and sifted through. And because I really want to nail this, that geoengineering is not just about making the weather controllable. And by the way, all the weather, to my knowledge, is controlled now. It's all engineered. But it's also about 6 other operations that are going on under the aegis of geoengineering, for the sake of what Catherine Austin Fitts, the really wonderful investment analyst, has called the secret space program. So that's it in a nutshell, and I hope that I have given you a sense that where we're at now is a very serious place. And I don't, if anybody's making light of what's going on, or have succumbed to absolute cynicism and sort of pouting in the corner and turning away from all of the complexity of what we're going through, I think that too should be rectified, because this is an amazing time to be alive. We are engaged in moving from one kind of life in humanity to another kind of life in humanity, and there is a big tussle going on over how that really is going to look. And believe it or not, we have finally, at least I believe, I have finally seen some forces after over 50 years come forward to fight for humanity. And it may not work now because it's really late in the game, but I am thrilled to see a struggle going on over what our future really will be. Will we be cyborgs connected to AI systems, artificial intelligence? Will we be human beings? And will technology be running us? Or will we finally wrestle away the controls and use our technology wisely? Those are some of the questions that are in the offing right now.
It really is a great array of concepts to talk about and to ask about. We brought those up on the show in many different ways, especially the whole idea of not necessarily rejecting technological advancement and taking in technology to make communication more streamlined, to be able to go and advance our personal business and to advance communication and philosophy and whatever. It's not being able to advocate for going toward a Stone Age kind of life, but it's just about being able to weed through what is something that is useful and what is something that is actually physically harmful. Is there any kind of way to disseminate between things that are consumer grade technology and military grade? Is everything dual use? But I do have a question I want to, because the transhumanism is something I have to get around to with you in this call. But the first thing is this, because I have heard you speak a great deal about on satellites, on energy weapons, on in-orbit structures that you have called space fence technology, and so much is relevant right now. I was saying it before I got on with you that at the height of the reporting of this latest rash of California fires, for example, civilians started making observations that suggest that high-altitude weapons were once again being used to light up the West Coast, also to pummel some fault lines in very pointed, symmetrical ways. And then, of course, we magically, you brought up the CIA before and chemtrails. Well, we magically got the Defense Secretary, Mark Esper, come out to suddenly warn us that our enemies were developing direct energy weapons and engaging in satellite warfare. And then, I'll tell you, it reminded me of 2016, CIA director at the time, John Brennan. He was speaking very lovingly about the use of atmospheric aerosol injections in front of the CFR, how they love doing it. It's all on out there. They weren't calling it chemtrails. It was atmospheric aerosol injections at the time. Do these public declarations, when you hear these, do these public declarations give you any kind of inclination into how late in the game we are, especially given the talking points that if we were talking about these technologies 5 or 10 years ago, you'd be labeled a quack. So do you think that the public declarations about them is any inclination into how advanced along the plot we are?
Well, I'm sure you know this, Frank, that once it's announced to the public, it's been around for at least a generation, always. There is no exception. So when I hear them blaming China and Russia for developing their weapons, it's a laugh, really, because we've been on it for decades, and no one is as advanced as we are now, and that has cost us dearly, because not just has it cost scientists. I was just looking yesterday at my notes because I'm writing the section on genetics. Do you remember in 2000 to 2003 or 4 when 60 microbiologists had strange deaths, and they were never solved? They were very odd, and they were really murders. So to me, science, for the true scientists who are willing to look at what impact this science is going to have on human society, they're in peril all the time, which is why the silence around me. I mean, think about it. The second book I wrote, Under an Ionized Sky, is now available at a technological university in Serbia. Serbia was Tesla's home turf, his language. The Serbians translated my book so that it would be available for their science students, because ironically, it's the only book out that attempts to look at the Tesla technology that we are now inundated by. This is a Tesla era, and looks at it for why and how it's been weaponized against us. And that is the key, is so many of these technologies, I mean, they're extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary, but they could also be used to the good if they were in the right hands. But the United States does not have a great record all the way back into world wars of really being ethical, and I think that's the key to our downfall, is the lack of the ethics, the lack of morality, the lack of caring really about humanity as a whole, rather than just a few individuals that can be useful to you. Somehow something has gone very wrong in the elite communities of the United States. And I always go back. I'm not saying it answers everything, but hey, I remember when people called me a conspiracy theory also for saying that Operation Paperclip was a huge turning point for the United States. And Paperclip, at one time, there were no books on it. Now there's over a dozen books on it. And it is when we made the deal with the Nazis in 1943 to 45 and brought them over to the United States, Canada, South America, also throughout Europe, into Northern Europe in particular, and basically rewarded their intelligentsia, their scientists, their engineers. They brought their notes from Auschwitz, from all of the camps that they had experimented on prisoners. They brought their exotic propulsion experiments, and we scrubbed their records, we changed their names, we gave them houses, we gave them plush positions at universities, military bases, hospitals, you name it. I mean, that was a big mistake, because not because we don't like smart people. Now we have many of our scientists in this country are Chinese, young people, super bright. Is that a good idea? So, you know, this idea that the science is the most important thing, more important than the people. This is a problem that, unfortunately, as I said before, I think it's too late now to fix it. So on we go, and I certainly don't feel that. I mean, I'm only writing these books because I have a strong desire to serve the public. And I have been working on that all these years, but perhaps now I'm just older, wiser, more organized. My writing is probably the best it's ever been. And so put it out there. I know people don't read. I know people would rather see a video. I know they can't concentrate anymore after years of television and now the iPhone. I know they can't retain what they take in because of the electromagnetics that are all around them. So when you say that we can use this technology, I'm certainly not a Luddite, but how can we turn this technology, this electromagnetic technology, to the good of the human being? Because I'll tell you, our bodies are not evolved to handle electromagnetics.
Well, let me put something on in there, because I think that could be a really great segue as we're talking about what the human body, what our systems can handle, and what we are, and what some people hope to make us into. I mean, when we talk about transhumanism, most people think about microchips being inserted into bodies, or the seeding of our food and drink and air with nanoparticles. I'd love to talk. There's so many things I want to talk to you about. Morgellons, I'd love to talk about that with you one night. But now you think about transhumanism, and people immediately go to Elon Musk's Neuralink, where you're talking about finally the direct connecting of our brains to computers. But however, your website links things like chemtrails and HARP to transhumanism as well. Can you describe that relationship in particular?
Yes. Nick Begich he was the first author I read on chemtrails in his book, Angels Don't Play This Harp, published in 1995. It was also the first time I had a military helicopter over my house, I might add.
Oh, boy.
and I think it was connected to my reading that book in a public institution that someone saw and didn't quite agree that it was good reading for me. So Nick talks about how HARP, the High Frequency Active Auroral Research Project, basically the most powerful ionospheric, it was the most powerful ionospheric heater in the world up until recently. And now we've upgraded the Arecibo observatory ionospheric heater in Puerto Rico, and apparently it's quite amazing. So Nick talked about how by zapping the ionosphere, we can not only control the ionosphere entirely, but we can force an ionization process by which electrons are popped off of atoms and they are ionized. And then we can bring those down into our atmosphere and electrify our atmosphere for many, 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 many operations. And that's why we have a wireless world today, because HARP was very successful. Now, part of that HARP success is this ability to actually bounce from the ionosphere to anywhere, a target area on the Earth. And it's absolutely unseen. You can't see it happening. You don't know where it's coming from. And you can target whole regions. You can target entire populations. You can target an individual. It really is easy to do, but HARP is definitely not the only way to do that. There are many ways, and one of them you mentioned was satellite. And satellite is very much, you're able to do that. And for targeting individuals, for the satellite, I suppose there's a lot written in the targeting literature by targeted individuals, and you can find out there how it is done, but it primarily has to do with whichever system you're talking about, HARP-like things or other ionospheric heaters. There are many now. They're all over the place, and they're smaller, but they still can do a lot of power, particularly if they do it interferometry ways. That's where you take two beams and you cross them over the target area, and then you can have a scalar event there by which you can make a plasma weapon and target people's brains if you have their evoked potential, the signature of their particular brain, their particular DNA. I mean, the science is so advanced now. It's a shame that we haven't been taught about it, and yet why would they teach us about it, given that they're using, I would say, at least 1.5 million Americans, and that's not even counting other nations around the world, for guinea pigs in targeted situations. So we have to find these things out ourselves. And this does have to do with the nanoparticles. This has to do with electromagnetics, and it has to do with the chemicals that are still being broadcast through the sky. They need those chemical trails. People keep writing me, "Oh, Elana, we've had clear skies for 3 days. Maybe they ended it." No, they haven't ended it. If anything, they have the skill now, through a few patents I've seen, to really make it less visible so that we're not really seeing it. But if you look at the horizon on a clear day, you will see that it's still murky. It's, I remember in my long life, I remember very clear days in which it was blue from horizon to horizon, and I mean a deep blue. I don't mean this powdered blue thing that people call a clear day. So all of that has to do with mind control. I mean, can I just take a moment and go through my 7 geoengineering operations that are
sure.
my scaffolding? And this is all from Clifford Carnicom. 7 geoengineering operations in service to the secret space program. Okay, so the first one is weather engineering. And to control the weather is a tremendous power. You can control nations. You can threaten them with drought. You can threaten them with floods, with earthquakes. Fukushima was certainly a HARP type of operation. So we had years of a lot of I would call them experimentation of major Earth events, and that was all part of the weather engineering. Okay, then there's the second operation, the chemical electromagnetic, and this includes electrical weather events, volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, etc. But it also includes plasma and antimatter experiments, and creating or retro-engineering Birkeland currents, which are a natural phenomenon, but you can make your own. And along with Alvin Whistler waves. They're making their own Alvin waves. And now we're seeing lightning coming up from the Earth. I know you've heard of that.
I have heard of those.
Just from the sky. Now it's coming up from the Earth because the entire Earth now is through tomography, Earth penetrating tomography is completely electrified. And we'll get to the fires, because that's where you really saw it. You saw how the ignition of the Earth itself, which has been pummeled for 2 decades minimum with nanoparticles of aluminum, barium, strontium, titanium, etc., and that was used to create an immolation, to create a way of combustion, a new way of combustion through nanotechnology. That's what the fires are really about. Yes, they're about clearing land so that they can build, big fancy things for the global elites. But they are also experimental in seeing just what it takes to ignite from space, probably with a laser or something like that, and then run the fire down on the Earth through the nanotechnology that nobody can see. And it's quite extraordinary. Now that I can see it, it's completely evident. But the first couple of years of the fires, 2017, 2018, I was examining footage and going over and over and over it, because it really has to do with what I hadn't just quite said, the planetary geophysical operation. That's operation number 3. Yes, that's what that was. Those fires are planetary geophysical operations. And they are still learning, and their lab is the Earth. I mean, we have to get this through our heads, that we are guinea pigs in the lab, and the lab is the entire Earth, not just the United States. But of course, if the U.S. is running the experiments, they're going to use their own people and their own land. That just is part of international law. But they can also, in times of war, and we know this has happened in Iraq and Afghanistan and probably Syria, we have seen things go on in these war countries where they are actually experimenting there as well. So now there's so much going on that they've brought it all home, is how I look at it. So let me just finish my list, and then we can come back to that if you want to. All right, the 4th operation is directed energy weapons. And the irony of this is, when we think of directed energy weapons, you can think of non-lethal weapons, you can think of voice-to-skull weapons that targeted individuals hear. It's a really microwave auditory hearing. You can think of microwaves, period. They are very deadly for the human body. Plasma beams, we've seen those in Star Wars, but of course they're using them. And but the interesting part of this is that I'm going to have to expand my idea of the directed energy weapons, because everything is, as you said earlier, dual use now. And so take the cell towers and the Gwen towers and the antennas that are in every inch of a smart city, and your 60 hertz in the walls, and your Internet of Things, and the 5G coming, and 6G coming, and the 7G coming. These are all dual-use weapon systems. So directed energy weapons, excuse me, it's everywhere as far as I can tell. So then next, that's the fourth one. The fifth one is surveillance and neural weapons. And surveillance, we know what that is. You know, they can see a postage stamp from space. And then neural weapons are where they have your evoked potential, your signature for your brain, your DNA, and they can hit you in a crowded room or on a crowded street, and you drop dead and nobody else does, that kind of thing. Or you can hear voices, or however it works.
Jeez.
So that's the neural ones, where they're plugging right into your brain, right into your nervous system. Then the sixth one is digital. This is the one I'm spending most of my time on, though these others are all through the book, this coming book. The digital biology / nanotechnology / transhumanism operation. Those are all very closely compacted together. And the digital biology is what's happening because molecular biology is being converted into digital biology. And as I said, we saw a glimpse of it in those first footages of Wuhan. We saw people dropping dead like that.
Yeah.
Then we heard.
I'm glad you bring that up, because when we were looking at that, and then of course we see how the same things were not being replicated over here. We didn't have that over here, and I'm saying to myself, this is a tale of two viruses here. What the hell? Why are we?
Yeah, I would not say viruses. Truthfully, there is no virus. You know, you can make a virus from a bacteria. You can make one. But as far as getting sick from viruses, doesn't happen. What happens, and there are doctors coming out now who are saying this, and we're all criticizing. I haven't believed in the germ theory since I studied Chinese medicine 40 years ago. No, it's a war motif, just another war motif that is making a mint out of people's fear of virus, out of people's fear of bacteria, and the medical industry is huge, and the big pharma is huge. All of this, we have been taken to the cleaners on all of that. But what did happen in the Wuhan footage is closer to what we've been told about the 60 gigahertz 5G environment and the sucking of oxygen out of our cells in a flash. How could that have happened? That would only happen if certain signatures were known about the people who dropped. And no, you're very good to see that we did not have the same event in New York, nor did Northern Italy have the same event. Those were run differently, and those were separate. The Wuhan one was very instructive to me. I immediately knew that it was digital biology that they had unleashed to see how it would work, and it worked. But to me, what we really need to study now and get straight on is nanotechnology. This is, you want to understand transhumanism and how it's going to happen? It's not going to happen through a vaccine. It can't, because you're going to have to, I mean, our traditional idea of a vaccine, you know, get, 300 million people in America to go down to the hospital and get vaccinated? It's never going to happen. But if you have nanotechnology in the people, and that's what's been delivered now, primarily through the jets and the rockets and the drones for the last 20 plus years, and then it's so tiny, this nanotech, and the biologicals in it, and all of the things they want to try on us to make us host, so they can follow the progress of their creatures. We have to breathe. We have to breathe. So we breathe it in. We can't notice it because a nano is 1/1000th of a meter. There's no way you can tell a nano. Now, when they get inside our bodies, because of the way they're engineered, they're primarily engineered. A nano is engineered as one atom lying next to another atom, lying next to another atom, etc. To and then you make them, because they have a certain type of consciousness of their own. They're matter, and they in a way are inorganic living matter. Now get a hold of that, because we've always been taught that organic is what is living. But if you think of a rock is not exactly living in this way that we are. So in that way, the nanotechnology that we breathe in and it gets inside of us, we also eat it in GMO foods if we eat GMO foods. And we are certainly vaccinated with it. Our babies, particularly our babies, are, the minute they get to the earth, boom, they're like, what a welcoming committee, huh?
Mm.
So we have them in us, and then what happened in Wuhan is the signature went out, the frequency that would affect all the cells in the body, the cell frequency, let's call it. And then suddenly they're all hit because the entire environment is saturated with 5 gigahertz, with 5G, 60 gigahertz, and all the cells collapse. All the water goes out, they collapse, and then the person drops over.
So you're
either dead or dying.
So you're talking about a scenario where we always hear that the human body in itself is in its natural state is a conductor and also a sender and receiver of energy. This is pretty much turning us into some kind of a hyper receiver, almost like a superconductor that is capable of being fried when we receive some sort of a pointed ray in our direction or something like that. But
yeah,
they have to layer us in with this. Okay.
I think I would more correctly say that we are very resonant creatures. That's what makes us so flexible. We are so resonant. Is you send me a microwave current with the frequency of my cells, and there's a match, and my whole body now resonates to that frequency you sent. I can't stop it from doing that.
Mm.
This is our strength and our weakness. And there's a wonderful little film. It's called Resonance Beings. It's on the internet, free. Really, really important to see. Because then you begin to understand how vulnerable we are to those Frankensteins who know that we will begin to resonate with whatever frequency they send. So if you're like a kid in the BLM or Antifa in Seattle, and you're fighting for what you think is freedom, or against the establishment or whatever it is, you have no idea how vulnerable you are, that you can be pulsed through your lovely cell phone, your iPhone, which I don't own at all. I don't want to own that weapon system. That weapon system's far beyond my capabilities.
Man.
And so they're pulsed with a frequency, let's say, for anger, violence, and they begin to act it out because they're a resonant being, and they're not even aware that this can happen, that the technology can do that. Plus, they're surrounded by cell towers, antennas, phased array antennas everywhere, and then those bloody iPhones. So you see how it works. And then inside the nanotech, if it has been programmed to work with the frequencies coming in from its master, whoever its master is, always remote, always somewhere else, even as far as Colorado Springs from Seattle, it doesn't matter where they are, because the entire atmosphere is ionized, remember?
Yeah.
It's all electric. It's one big antenna. So, you have to realize, that's why I keep saying to people, I know you didn't like science in high school. Do I care? No, I don't care, because you chose to live in an era of technology. And just like me, I've had to learn. I'm pretty good at biology because I had that as an undergrad, but yeah, physics is, I've had to work hard to understand all of this, and thank goodness I've had a few renegade scientists that I can call with when I get really stuck. So the nanotech, let's just finish that off, because
Okay.
that's really the big story, I think. We have it in us. All right. So some people, like Tony Pantalaresco, a Canadian herbalist, some people are experimenting with ways to get the nanotechnology out of our bodies. Because once they're in, they are, if you live in an electromagnetic environment, which we all pretty much do, whether we're ameliorating it or not. Like, I don't own a television. I don't own any piece of technology that's putting out a lot of microwave or radio wave frequency, except my computer. And then I have a router that I turn off at night when I go to sleep. Otherwise, I've got the 60 hertz in the walls. That can be used. I have no Internet of Things type. I have very old stuff, no dishwasher, no fancy stuff. And this is how I choose to live. I always check wherever I move to make sure that it's as primitive as possible, because I have books to write. I need to keep my thoughts sharp and my health good.
I try so hard. I try so hard. I've in the years that I've kept this in mind, and especially I've heard this conversation in certain forms, you leading radio audiences through it over the last few years of following your work as well. And it always comes down to, and I remember also the subsequent conversations of how hard it is to rid yourself of this stuff, because it's not like a dietary change, or taking a little bit more time to have a artificial sweetener leave your body. You're talking about actual foreign objects that is as small as what we would consider dust, and these particles. It had always been very interesting to me, and at the same time it makes you wonder, how the hell do I actually really escape it? Even if I do go to a flip phone again, and I make sure that I stay away from a lot of EMF emission at home, I still got to go outside. I still got to go out and be social with my friends. I want to go to a restaurant. I'd love to have a bottle of wine, maybe a cheap bottle of wine one day. So since we're wrapping up just a little bit of this first volume of you being on the show, what would you say? And now that we've been through these 7 theaters of warfare, of mainly unseen warfare and undetected warfare in many ways, what would you say is a good place to start for people who are hearing this for the first time and may want to start cleaning up their own personal life, outside of course, ditching smartphones, which is going to be really tough for somebody like me who does so much constant work through them. But let's say for somebody out there who just really wants to start taking practical approaches to shielding themselves personally while the world around them continues this ongoing onslaught.
Okay, but now you reminded me. I didn't tell you the 7th operation.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Really quick.
My bad. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Let's get the 7th. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, and the 7th is a very unusual one, yeah, I could say a lot about that. The 7th operation, after the digital biology, nanotechnology, transhumanism 6th operation, is the cloaking and obscuration and detection of exotic propulsion craft and plasma life forms in the atmosphere.
What? Are we talking?
Yes.
Are we talking interdimensional beings?
Well, we're actually talking about the second part, the exotic propulsion craft. That could be either a very physical craft made by human beings, like the TR-3B, which is triangular in shape. And by the way, regarding the fire, a TR-3B was actually seen over California during one of the fires, and they move super fast, and they hover. They are the real UFO technology, and we've had it for quite a while. I don't know how many years, but quite a while. Not from Alpha Centauri or off planet. No, these are ours. At the same time, there are also appear to be exotic propulsion craft which are plasma. And plasma is the fourth state of matter, it's called. And it's sort of a gas and sort of a fire, depending on its state. And it's very important, and we won't go into that today. But then the last part that you went, what? Is the plasma life forms. And to understand that, you have to go to Wilhelm Reich and James Trevor Constable, The Cosmic Pulse of Life, in his book. He has a lot of pictures that he took with infrared film out on the desert of basically massively huge microbes. They look like microbes because, biology was my second major. I remember seeing them under the microscope. They're big blobby things with little eyes. They sometimes have little eyes. And they have probably lived in this atmosphere in one phase or another for millions of years. They are this may be why the Vedas, the ancient Vedas, called the atmosphere the sea. The sea above.
Elana, are these the things that we always see popping up on what are supposed NASA cams and stuff? They almost look like like little donuts.
Well, they look like donuts, and they look. If you notice, they pulse. Did you see them pulsing?
Yeah, they pulse. They look like little donuts.
They're diaphanous plasma bodies, and they're generally called orbs, right? Because they're round usually, and you can tell they're conscious because they're very curious. They're kind of like children. They come around the ship and they wander, and they call them bogies, right? NASA calls them bogies. Yes, this is they, and so these also are being retro-engineered by human beings, by the engineers. So those are the 7 operations. So at least we got those out. Very interesting and ideal. This is my scaffolding that I hold for geoengineering. Now, for the other part of what you can do, okay, the first thing to do is to examine your lifestyle. And if you are of adult age, which in America, adulthood comes very slowly, I would say post 35, you must learn to be an adult, because we have been not only treated like children, but we have been children greatly because we've had a lot of liberty here and a lot of conveniences and comforts, and we have basically stood on the backs of the entire developing world in order to have all of our wonderful things. So our will is weak. Our personal will is generally quite weak. And we have to really take a look at ourselves and be scathingly honest with ourselves. That, do we really want to be an adult? All right, so an adult will look at the lifestyle and say, yeah, I love eating a quart of ice cream on the couch and watching a good movie. But is that quart of ice cream really serving my intestinal tract, which is the very core of my immune system? Now, we have a lot of people who believe in what just happened and the virus and all that, and I don't want to go into that, but your immune system, your physical immune system, is super, super important. So all the junk food, out. All of the habits that are really not serving the health of your body's your body temple, of the living spirit, of the soul, whatever you want to call it, you've got to take care of that. That is your responsibility. So the days of junk food and all of the do what you want, not necessarily what you should do, if you are really caring for your body, caring for your people, caring for your nation, caring for life on Earth, caring for the Earth itself. It's all connected, you see, folks. It's all connected. You can't do one thing and not do another. And I live like a monk. I hold myself to a very firm discipline because, and I have to have a treat now and then. I have to go out and have some GMO food once in a great while. And so the next few days I'll kind of watch myself and eat really pure organic food. It's not a matter of being stentorian. It's not a matter of being, some sour prune type of person. It's getting into the rhythm of it, of good practices, and taking good care of yourself. Okay, so regarding getting the nanos out on a daily level, the person to go and study is Tony Pantalaresco, and he spells his name Pantalleresco. Tony's not the only person in the world doing this, but for simplicity's sake, I'll send you his way. He's got a lot of good ideas. He's working now on experimenting with magnetism to drive them out.
Wow.
And I think magnetism is the way to go. It's just a matter of finding the right kind of device and the right kind of strength. But otherwise, I take the baths that Tony recommends. I take 2 baths per week because I don't have any Morgellons outbreaks. But if you have Morgellons outbreaks, you probably would take the baths daily. And the baths are with Epsom salts, sea salt, baking powder, or baking soda, excuse me, and borax, or boron. The boron gets through the biofilm that all of your skin is and your pores are clogged up with. It's very real, very real. It's coming down from the sky. Why do they send that down? Because they want their little petri dishes to be completely enclosed. So the baths are good, and then there are different things that Tony recommends you take, and that becomes your learning, your college that you're going to learn how to survive this, so that you are not forced to go to the hospitals, which are simply an industry of illness. They are not a place of healing. And the doctors, well, some doctors seem to be finally waking up, which is really wonderful, but you have to look carefully at these people. An authority figure may not be the authority figure that is for the good, but for power. Who knows? So you have to be very spiritually discerning. Use your discernment and share your stories with people of like mind. You don't have to go out and start preaching to people about how they should believe what you believe, but find those people who are working on this and share notes, because we're all learning. This, again, is a democratic movement. We're learning from each other because the experts are not coming. They are not going to save us. We have to really look at things ourselves. And those are the major things that I share. And am I depressed or something? No, we've had parasites for years, for eons. We have flora and fauna in our intestinal tract that help us digest our food and assimilate the nutrients. We are hosts already, but this may be the first time in human history that we actually have man-made machines in us that have a swarm intelligence and are in absolute obedience to remote masters. This may be the very first time.
Wow. Elana, that right there, if we were writing a book together, this would be chapter 1, the end of chapter 1. That is this is remarkable. It really is. I can't thank you enough. I know that many people at home are probably sitting there scribbling some notes down. I'm going to have to listen to this over again myself and write down my own notes, and then perhaps turn it into show notes that I can publish on the website, so that people can really experience this and have almost like a guide or a missile that is a
yes,
that's attached to this episode. It's so wonderful. Please, before we take off, I would love to get you back on the schedule for sometime soon to go a little bit deeper into Morgellons. I want to go into a little bit more into a space fence and a few other things there too. But for now, please let people know how they can find your work, how they can buy your books, and if you're doing any upcoming appearances that they can be on the lookout for.
The site that I recommend is my blog site, which is done entirely by my web mistress, bless her heart, and that is at elanafreeland.com. Sometimes I do post a blog, but normally I'm too busy to really get there. And as far as the books, you can get them from Evil Amazon, or the first two geoengineering books are you can get them at Feral House, the publisher. This next book will not be out until early in the year. It's taking longer than I thought, but understandable given what we've just all been through the last several months. And then I have two closed or private Facebook sites. You can apply to be a member. One of them is dedicated to issues that have to do with geoengineering. The other one, Elana Freeland Sub Rosa America, has to do with everything else. And most of the COVID-19 work is at the Sub Rosa America because it was threatening to completely inundate the geoengineering site. So otherwise, I'm on Facebook a lot, not that I particularly want to be, but it is where millions of people are. And I want this word to go out and for people to become curious and to really see that it's time that we really took ourselves in hand in order to fight the good fight for the future of humanity.
Elana Freeland, this has been a wonderful honor for me, and I know that many of you've been very warmly received by this audience from what I can see so far, and I'm sure all of the many people out there who will be listening to this on demand and in rerun are going to have just as much of a wonderful experience. Thank you so much. I will be in touch. We have to do this again, and soon, if you would be willing. And anything we can do over here at Quite Frankly to help you out and let people know about any upcoming publishings or anything like that, just let us know. I'd be happy to help.
Thank you so much, Frank.
Okay, have a great one. Thank you.